Hi everyone, a very happy new month to you all. Thank you for joining us on both our Zoom channel and YouTube for the session. It's a pleasure to have every one of you here. Today we are doing a session which is part of a series, and the session is all about how to pump your profile for recruiters. Our guest for today is Anne Mukundi. A brief on who Anne Mukundi is. She is one of the people I've been working with at Andela. So let me first introduce myself, then I'll go to Anne Mukundi. For me, I am Bethany Jepchumba. I am one of the program assistants at Andela. I'm pretty sure if you've been at GADS 2020, we've met before. I was part of the program assistants for Andela. And yeah, who is Anne Mukundi? Anne Mukundi is And Mukundi is a lead facilitator in developer preparations and strategic initiative. She transitioned from software development to facilitation when she joined Andela 3 years ago. So she's been in Andela for about 3 years now. And when she joined as a bootcamp facilitator where she trained developers in Python. Today, she creates pipelines that connect qualified ALC members to job opportunities in the ALC employer network, as well as Andela. So, Anne, welcome to the session.
Thanks a lot, Bethany, for that intro, and hello, everyone. I've interacted with some of you, not some of others, maybe not, but anyway, glad to meet new people as well here. Yeah, so like Bethany said, I used to be a coder more than 3 years ago, actually, but then came to Andela as a trainer, and my coding has reduced since then. And nowadays, I'm sure we've reached out to some of you about job opportunities and such, and that marks my day-to-day life currently at Andela, looking at your CVs against available job opportunities, and then recommending you for roles that you fit, especially for those who have said they're interested in getting connected to jobs. And that is where this session or this series emanated from. Just to give a background, because we got to a point where we had to go through more than 100 CVs before you could get one person fit for a job, not because they didn't have the skills, but because they weren't showcased in their CV. So nice to meet you all. And I can see people saying hi in the chat. Hi, Nathan from Ghana. Yeah, I'll just jump onto the presentation. For those who are joining, please mute yourself when you join the call. Right, I hope you can all see my screen now. So Pump Your CV, as mentioned, this is just one part of a series of presentations we'll be having about cracking your interview. And the series will include your CV. There'll be one about your LinkedIn profile. The CV one might expand to the different kinds of people we have. For example, a CV for freelancers won't be the same as a CV for someone who just graduated or someone who is in a leadership position. And then it will also grow into coding, computer science, hackathons and such, or computer science challenges, because those are part of the things that we go through when we are screening people for an opportunity, especially a tech-related opportunity. So today, what we're going to be covering about the CV is what your CV should look like, or the different sections that are generally found in a CV. And for each section, we'll go into depth in terms of what should you mention in that section, where should it be located, how can you showcase the skills that you're selling? And then also at the end, we'll share resources that can help you improve your CV by almost 100%, that's possible. So to the first section, anatomy of your CV. Again, let me know if I'm going too fast by typing in the chat. If you have questions, also type in the chat, but then it will stop me when I need to slow down a bit. So the most obvious section of your CV is your header. And as you can see on the presentation, that's the top part of your CV. And that's the section where you tell people how they can reach you, be it through your email, where you're located, your phone number, or your profile. And this is your professional profile. And then under that, we have the education or experience, depending on your experience level. Now we'll just go into depth about your header first, because that's the first section. Again, you can see there are various ways of doing this header section, but we've just used one very simple one in the what you can see on your top left. Now, why is it important? This directly tells me how to reach out to you if I were sourcing for a role or if I were a recruiter. It also tells me whether you're in the right location. For example, if I'm looking for a position that physically requires you to be in Ghana and your location says Nairobi, then it doesn't make sense to continue looking at your CV. So what must you have in this section? So we need your name. First of all, just know who are we talking about here. Your email, phone number, location. Please, if you have a number of phone numbers, just choose the main one that you're always close to, and then that's the one you would put on this section. Your name should be your official name, not your nickname. And then the optional bit is the profile. For example, your LinkedIn profile, your title, am I Miss Mukundi or Mrs. Mukundi? That's what the title is about. And then for the profile, it can just be, it can be LinkedIn, it can be GitHub, or a URL to a personal profile that you've created. Because some people do have their own. For example, Ann.me would be a personal profile if I had one for me, which I could add there. So that's totally optional for this section in case you don't have one. What should not be in your resume header? Please note, these are just for resumes. I understand if you are talking about, say, LinkedIn or a job board profile, then these might change, but particularly for your resume, avoid having social media links, that is Facebook, Instagram, unless the role that you're applying for requires you to be actively engaged in those. For example, if you're applying for a marketer role and you're an influencer, it would make sense to have Instagram there. If not, just leave it out. Personal details such as marital status, gender, etc. Basically, if you think from an employer's side of view, when they say the question, we do not discriminate, any field that allows discrimination there is what we are saying should not be there, especially when it comes to the gender bit and such. So then your photo, again, not required for most jobs unless it's a very specific field. Say, for example, modeling. In this case, you'll have a portfolio, not even your photo. So again, that's not required in a tech resume. Yeah. Labels. Now, what labels mean, if I could just go back, is, for example, here where it says Nairobi, Kenya, putting location, colon, Nairobi, Kenya, then phone, then the phone number, then email. Like those are not needed because one can very easily tell from just looking at it, Nairobi is a location, plus 254 is a phone number. So there's no need to put in labels, they just take up unnecessary space. Then multiple contact details. Again, this is just what I was talking about earlier. You don't want to give someone multiple numbers, just give one number that you can be reached out to directly, or multiple emails, just use one. Charles, if you could stop drawing on the screen, please. Bethany, is it possible to disable annotations? Yeah. So what should be in your education section? Now, this is the next section on the CV. And remember here, it can be education, but we'll cover that bit a bit later. So what you can see here is basically what a normal education or a simple education section would look like. Again, it shows.
Can I disrupt you a little bit?
Okay.
There's some shuffling noise from your end.
Okay. Let me readjust my earpiece. Is it better?
Yeah, no, it's better.
All right. So education. This is a section where you indicate the courses you've taken, academic achievements, certifications, even short courses that you've taken. Again, these ones you can list either related to the job you're applying or all of them, because if you're talking about general CV, then it's okay to have all of them. And what are the must-have for this particular section? You must have like the institution you studied in, and what you are studying, when you graduated, or the period during which you are studying this, and then any achievements or honors that you got during that study period. For example, in the first one, it says AIS University. That shows the location that you studied in. Then what did I study? Bachelor of Business IT, graduated with honors. What did I major in? Database design. I understand that some courses do not have a major, so it's okay to leave the major out if you didn't major in anything. But if you did, and if it's a plus to the job that you're applying for, please list it there. In terms of achievement, it could be, were you a fellow in a particular program? Did you receive a scholarship because of your performance? Were you one of those people who are always on the dean's list? Yes, so if you had any leadership positions, for example, led the Students' Council, again, indicate those. Again, then there is a GPA point there. That is not a must. If you have a high GPA, actually, it should be 3.5 and above, but 3 is also okay. You can indicate it, then indicate the location where you studied. In this case, that's what you can see on the right, Nairobi, Kenya, and then I've just indicated here the graduation date as opposed to the full date. You could also indicate, say, 2010, April 2010 to April 2015, the whole period. That's also an option. Yeah. Again, I appreciate that we are looking at, we have, the ALC is actually made of different kind of people with different levels of education. And this is by design because we want to build a community for anyone, even though you're under 18 and you're interested in tech, we want to help build you up. So this section now covers people who are still in high school, or you're a self-taught programmer and your highest level of education is high school. So it is okay to add in your high school details and when you graduated. That's what you can see on the top box on your right. And then you can also showcase things that you achieved while you were in high school. So did you study a foreign language? Were you active in sports? Did you have any leadership positions? And then did you do any volunteer work, say during the holidays and such? So just indicate that as well. And I'm curious where people studied. Maybe in chat you can also share where you studied, what you studied, just to make this less one-sided. So the big question, I think a number of people have asked me this when I am looking at their CVs and asking for an updated copy. Where should the education section go? And in this case, it depends on where you are in your career journey. So basically, if you have more than a year of working experience, then your work experience should come before education. So you would move from the title section to experience and then education. But then if you are a fresh graduate, you've never worked before, then your education is what speaks for your abilities, and therefore your education is what should come first. So, and as you can see in the points there, it says anyone with more than 1 year, education comes second. Anyone with less than a year, education comes first. Now, a few tips for these, the education section. Start with your highest degree first. For example, if you studied bachelor's and master's, start with your master's and then your bachelor's, and then the rest in reverse chronological order, basically meaning the dates in which you did them. For example, I've met someone with 3 bachelors, and I don't know, 3 bachelors and a PhD. That was I've never met anyone else like him. So basically start with his master's, then the 3 bachelors in chronological order. Wow, that's a hard word. Yes, and then the rest of the certifications there. Then if you finished college and have gone up to university or postdoctoral studies, then there's no need to add your high school, because what then you gained in college onwards will clearly represent what you had learned in high school. Then for uni, if you have your GPA and it's a high GPA, feel free to add it to your education section. And then if it's less than 3 years since you graduated, because after 3 years, then an employer would stop looking at your GPA and look at your work experience. What have you gained in those 3 years? What have you achieved in those 3 years? Now, the experience section. This is the most crucial part. And the reason why I say it's the most crucial part is because if I were considering you for, say, a software lead role, I would go to your experience section and check whether you have actually led a team, any team. So it basically tells me whether this is the first time you'll be holding this position, or you've had the experience of being in a similar position. And both scenarios are okay. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to move from a lead role to a lead role unless I just want to switch companies. It makes sense to say, I'm a software developer now, I want to become a lead software developer, and here's my experience. But basically, it tells me whether you're credible enough for the job that you're applying for. So what should you include here? Basically, you list your work experience history, starting with your latest and then going backwards. And then you need to include the role that you held. Which company did you work at? What was the location of the company? And then the period when you worked there. So when did you start? When did you end? Yes. And then what's important here also is to show us the skills that you utilized in that role and the achievements that you had. Now, in this section, it matters how you portray the skills. Because, for example, if I say I developed a system in PHP, that is fine. It says, or I developed an e-commerce platform. That is vague, because it would say, yes, you have the skills for developing an e-commerce platform, but was it in PHP? Was it in Python? So I developed an e-commerce platform in PHP. That would be a bit more specific, which would be preferred, because then it tells me that in the last X years, you have used PHP. On the other hand, saying that you solved something, showing a metric that you achieved, and then also mentioning the skill is important. For example, I could say that if you are to use the same e-commerce scenario, I reduced the checkout time for an e-commerce platform from 3 hours to, say, 30 minutes. I don't know whether there's a platform that takes 3 hours to check out, but yeah. And then based on PHP or improving the systems, based on JavaScript scripts, things like those, basically try to show the tool and the achievement. In the achievement, depending on your level, it can be in terms of what was the goal for the company? Was it to reduce, say, the turnaround time for a certain functionality? Was it to make something more efficient? And you need to mention that. If you can make it numerical, the better. For example, in my previous life, I worked on a hospital management system, and I could tell you we did a module that allowed us to track drug expiry dates, reducing the cost of expired drugs by 1M. That's a metric that tells you it has a numbers. We saved the company 1 million in expired drugs, and that's awesome. It also shows that you can connect your code to the business. Now, what should be, yeah?
Before we move on, there's a question on the previous section on the education part. Mm-hmm. So when, so the question is, just for clarity, when is one done with university that you should not add your secondary and primary education level? I think the question is, when should you add your primary, secondary, and university level, and when should you remove each one of them?
So, okay, I actually wouldn't add my primary school education either way, but when should you remove your high school? Once you're done with university, and I mean graduated, gotten the papers, then you can go ahead and remove your high school. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
What if you've taken a course that's lasted more than a
diploma?
Sorry, I didn't
Okay,
hear
I'm
that.
sorry. I think two people are speaking at the same time. If you want to speak, you can use the raise hand feature or post the question in the chat, then we'll get to you. So you don't speak out of turn. If you want to speak, you can raise your hand. I think that would be more orderly. Yeah.
Yes, that makes more sense.
So
Just
maybe
put your
Chetam,
question
you
in the
can
chat.
ask your question.
Thank you. I wanted to ask if one have a diploma, in diploma you would have probably the ordinary diploma, and then you have the higher national diploma. And that is one is preparing a CV. Is it advisable to remove the ordinary national diploma before once the higher national diploma is completed? Or is it advisable to include the two in the CV?
Okay. Here's the thing, and I'll just tell you from my experience that if you've taken both, it's good to include both, but clearly show what was achieved in each. The reality here is that, especially when you're applying for roles from all over, not just locally where you're located, some of these might not make sense to other people. For example, the first time I saw that higher national diploma, especially higher national diploma, was from applicants in Lagos. In Kenya, we don't have a national diploma. So you see, that would not, like for a recruiter who is not based in your location, they might not know the difference, right? So just include both and clearly show what was achieved in each of them. And the same applies for example, there are people who take a 2-year degree or a diploma, 2-year diploma. If we are working with a company from US, they will call that an associate's degree. But there's someone who will say, this is just a 2-year degree. Let me remove it and include only the 4-year one. Again, include both when it comes to post-high school studies. I hope that answers you, Chetam.
Yes,
I think,
yeah.
Okay, so hotspot.
I didn't hear what you said, but we move on.
He said
Hello.
his answered. So
Can you
yeah,
hear me?
hotspot. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask that with the education section, what if you've taken a program, more or less it's like a learning part, but the learning part takes 2 years, it's a 2-year program, or 18 month, 1.5-year program. Is it okay to add it to the education section instead of maybe the achievement or the courses taken?
Right. Yes. So if you've taken a 2 years or less program, it's okay to add them to the CV section. Again, by when I say showcase, let me just actually go back to that section. When I say showcase what you studied, I am referring to the section that says, in this case, certificate in team management or bachelor's in business IT with honors such. And like you said, 18 months, I know you feel like 18 months is a very short time, but there are things I've seen on CVs that actually make me consider someone, and they were much shorter than that. For example, last week I was looking at a CV for someone who had done a course called Disruptive Strategic Management that was only 6 weeks long. 6 weeks. That is less than 3 months, right? But then it made them a good hire for the position they were applying for. So again, so long as you indicate clearly where did you study, and what were you studying, then by all means put it there. The only time I would ask you to remove it would be, for example, if you're switching careers and you did something in marketing, but then you've totally moved away from marketing, now you're just doing software engineering, the role you're applying for has nothing to do with marketing, then that's the time I would ask you to remove. But that's a different conversation. That's a targeted resume as opposed to a general resume.
Okay, I think we have, I think you've answered this question. We have 2 more questions, then we continue.
Okay.
Then, so if you have a question, so that to save on time, you should post them on the chat, then I'll take all of them. So the question is, some CVs have a profile sections after the header. I think that's the career profile. Is it necessary to have it? A summary of your skills?
Yes. Again, not a must, but yes. In fact, there are some templates that we will share that will have that section that shows like your skills. And this section, you can include it either immediately after your header or at the bottom, so long as, so long as it actually showcases your skills.
Okay, I think that.
Okay. And then there are people who use it to like explain, like, my name is Anne, I love, say, boxing and all that. Like, okay, we will cover a section where we show how you should list these things. Don't use 10 paragraphs in that section. Keep it short and sweet, straight to the point, and that way it will work for you.
Okay, regarding education, 2 more questions. Mm-hmm. So can one include the master's degree? And is it really necessary to have your secondary school education?
Again, secondary school depends on where. If you're at master's, you don't need the secondary school. The thing you need to realize here is that there are people in this group who are actually under 18, so I don't expect them to have done university onwards. And this is because some of the Google programs we run actually do not check your age, right? So the high school would be for someone who has not gone to college onwards, but if you have, then remove that.
And for masters, is it necessary to include it?
Why not? Why not? I am actually struggling to see why you'd go ahead and study your master's and not include it in your CV if it's relevant to the job you're applying for. I would include it.
Yeah, so if it's ongoing, if you're not yet done, you can also include it, right?
Yes, you can include it. You see the section here where it says Nairobi, Kenya, April 2015. If you've not yet graduated, you can include the timelines for, say, you can say January 2020 to January 2025. Show the period during your study. Yeah. So still include it, but show the date like you're currently studying that.
Okay, so the last one, so that we don't dwell on this so much. And online courses and online classes, should you include them? And yes. In what section? Okay, go ahead.
So in your CV, it would still fall under education. On LinkedIn, I know there is a section for certifications, and you can include it as other certifications. And by the way, the example I was giving you for the 6 weeks strategy disruption course, that was actually an online course from Harvard for 6 weeks. So it actually makes sense to include it. And the assumption here is that you took that course to give you the skills needed to make you better at your job. You didn't just see a course and decide to take it, you know. And the beauty of these things is that some time back, in fact, if I think of the time when I started coding, these online courses were not being considered as something you learned, right? But we're in a different age right now. People are opening up to these online courses. And with Corona anyway, online has become normalized now. So yes, do include them and include them at the right place. So for example, if you've done a master's and then an online course, that would be under the master's.
Okay, I think we can move on to the experiences, and then once we wrap up, we can go to the next set of questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I believe we had covered this section, so I'll just start on what should be in the experience section of your CV.
Yeah.
Now, okay, this is what I was alluding to, what you can see on the right. So in this section, you're listing your accomplishments. Again, here, avoid long paragraphs and long stories. Just use bullet points that highlight the achievements that you achieved in the role against the goals that were set for you. So you can include products created. For example, in the hospital system that I was telling you about, that was a stock taking module, stock tracking module, skills learned. Did you learn how to analyze data when you are doing these, goals met or exceeded? This is where you mention you increased sales by X%, or you gained the company back this amount of money and such. And for tech, because I know in tech, most of the times you don't even have the business numbers. You can even say something like you scaled your platform to be able to handle X number of users, from say 100 users to 1,000 users, and it could hold that. Be specific, where available, quantify, show us a number. And there are some examples there. Again, if you gained any skills here, show those skills. If you received any accolades, again, show them here. Okay, I thought someone was talking. Then the experience comes with skills. Now, this is a section where now you showcase the skills you used there. Why is this important? You see, there's someone who asked about the skills sections at the top. And there you will tell me, I am conversant in HTML, in Python, in JS. When you include it in the job section, say I worked at Andela for 1 year using Python, and I worked at Andela, say 2 years ago. And then in your next job, you say, I'm currently working at company X. I am using Google Cloud, and you don't mention Python. It tells me that the last time you used Python was at Andela. So if I'm looking for someone who is using Python currently, then that's different from what you're telling in your job. So this section, including the skills in your various jobs, is also important when you're applying for a job. Okay, then tips for this section are use action verbs. So instead of saying I increased, you just go to increased, introduced, such words. Then use numbers. Again, that I know I've said a lot, but yes, use numbers because they give, imagine someone who is on the business side looking at your CV, they won't know the impact you will have on the business, and will it be immediate? So numbers help portray that.
Okay, maybe a follow. No, maybe you can finish the experience part, then I'll ask the question afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, what to avoid in your experience section? What the organization does. Again, here, try to think from the recruiter's point of view. The recruiter is interested in knowing you. As much as the organization you work for is interesting, they are poaching you from that organization. So instead of selling the organization, sell yourself. Tell us what part you played in that organization, right? And the example given here, is that of a trainer. For example, I could come and tell you a history of Andela. Andela was established how many years ago? This is what they have trained. They have trained 1,000 developers, or they currently employed 1,000 developers. Like, yes, it's a good story. I would be selling the Andela brand, which I'm proud of, but I would not be selling myself. So make sure that if you're talking about the organization, it's not taking the bulk of the section. What is taking the bulk of the section is the impact you made at that organization, or the part you played in that organization. And then the basic requirements of your position. And what you should do is indicate these instead in the things that you achieved. For example, saying my day-to-day included coding in this, and this. No, just tell us you delivered this module using these tools, and that will tell us your coding. The assumption here is that the hiring person knows the day-to-day of that position and doesn't need to be told a story about the position itself, unless it's something like, for example, you can say I managed a team, or my work involves managing software development teams. Or you could tell us I managed a team of X engineers across X countries to deliver X product. That is more specific to what you achieved. Then filler words, again, these ones just fill the CV with unnecessary words. Okay, I'll take the questions for experience.
The question was, what if for developers, so the issue is about coding. So some of the code you have is in your private repo. So how do you share the code to ensure that you can be able to actually do the work, but you can't because it's in a private repo, let's say for your organization?
And this is the nature of software development, and I don't believe you'll go somewhere where they'll allow you to publicly share the code. In fact, you're likely to sign an NDA saying that you can't share that code with anyone. And that's fine. Again, that doesn't keep you from saying the impact you had, doesn't keep you from saying the tools you used at all. And it's one of those things that you get to know. You can ask yourself, what about these can I communicate without breaking the NDA? For example, I'm not telling you the secrets of the business. That's enough. So I can say, I developed this module that does X and X, or that's increased the revenue by X. When I tell you I increased revenue by X, I'm not exactly telling you I increased revenue by doing this and this and this. Right? And you can even look at it in terms of what does the company share publicly. For example, if you look at companies like Safaricom who share their profits online, they don't tell you how they made those profits directly. They just tell you we made the profit. They might have made it through something like these offers they give us, or for those who are not in Kenya, Safaricom is a telecommunications company. By offers they give you in terms of mobile data and such, but they won't tell you that. They'll just tell you we made X amount of money this year. So use the same logic. Tell us the tools, tell us the impact you had. If a recruiter asks you to show your code that you've signed an NDA for, just tell them, no, you can't show them that to breach your NDA, but you're willing to take a challenge or develop something, a challenge that they give you to showcase your skills. And in fact, most recruiters will already have a challenge for you to showcase your skills and to confirm that you actually know that. That's a long answer, but I hope it covered everything.
I think it covered everything, because the question was, how can you now validate your project? Then I think this is back to the education question. So there are some job adverts that are specific on the job requirements, like you will have a grade, your grade should be B+ and above for like English and Kiswahili, or English and I think maths. So is this where it is necessary to provide the secondary education?
Yes, if that is actually called targeted resume, and yes, and it's not just about, say, like your grades and such. If a job says it requires Python, you need to show you have worked in Python in your CV. If it requires such grades, then include them in your CV. Again, you need to have a general CV, and then you need to have a tailored CV for the job that you're applying for. Yeah. Any other question?
The last one on YouTube, James is asking, how do you put across the fact that you did not leave your previous job in good terms because probably the pay was not good or something similar, in the sense or in the sense that they engaged you without a contract? How do you put it across?
Those are a number of questions in one. So there's a question of I worked without a contract. Then there's a question of I did not live in good terms.
Yeah.
So let me start with I did not live in good terms. Again, this is not something you need to show in your CV that you did not live in good terms. And it doesn't negate the fact that you worked there. So you can still indicate you worked there. The question then becomes, during the interview, if you asked, why did you leave? Then how do you portray that? Now, this is something I feel iffy telling you, because I feel like if I interview you guys, you will play me using the same thing. But well, if I ask you a question, why did you leave your job? And it was a negative question. It was a negative reason. I need to know two things. Was it that you made a mistake, or was it that the employer treated you wrong? And it also matters how you put that. If you come and tell me my ex-employer is so bad, they did blah, blah, blah. First, I will wonder, will you say that about me when you leave, right? But then if you tell me this is what transpired, and then this is what I learned from the situation. This was my mistake. This is what I learned from the situation. This is how I could have handled it better. Then that becomes a better conversation. For me, and in fact, I will, if you have had a mock interview with us, there's a question that we'll always ask you. A scenario where you were in a difficult situation, you received negative feedback, how did you handle it? It's the same question here. It's about, yes, tell me what happened, yes, but what was your part in it? That tells me whether you can own up to your mistakes. Then what did you learn from it? It tells me whether you can actually take feedback and reflect on your actions and learn from them. How could you have solved it better? How could you have handled it better? Again, are you able to solve the problems that you go through? So it's about how you play it. If you're about blaming your employer, then I can tell you right now that it won't go well. Yeah. Then on the question of contract, the question here then becomes, is your, yes, you worked without a contract. It happens. I wouldn't advise it, but let's say it happens. But then is the question here that that person can't be called to confirm you did that work? If that's the case, then you just won't give them as a reference, right? When we ask for references. But it doesn't mean that you can't list the project. If you worked on it and you can actually, like, if I give you a problem related to that, you can actually solve it, by all means include it.
I think this will be the last for this section. Mm-hmm. So for fields such as cloud computing, it's difficult to actually showcase the projects that you worked in, because everything you work on it on the cloud, then probably you don't have money, so you clear all the resources. So you can't really demonstrate what exactly you worked on. So how exactly are you supposed to now show that, yes, I have the skills, but you can't show the work?
Allow me to use, okay, let me actually change that word. Know your stuff. Okay, I would say know your stuff, because your interviewer also knows the hardship in cloud computing. Believe me, they do. And then what happens then is that the kind of questions you asked change. And these are not like, show me your work kind of questions. It's, for example, AWS. AWS has many, many tools that you can use. And you'll find someone who just knows how to deploy to AWS. Then you'll find someone who actually has deep knowledge of AWS. If I just ask you, do you have skills in AWS, or talk about your skills in AWS, what you tell me will tell me how far you know AWS. Is it just the basics? Are you actually a DevOps person who can both deploy, troubleshoot, and actually set up a pipeline for a full project? The questions actually change depending on what they're interviewing for. And then the other thing is, you should be ready to get a challenge that showcases your skills. And in that case, your employer would actually provide a sandbox for you to develop the project.
Yeah,
in scenarios where you're not given a sandbox, they would tell you, they would give you a challenge and then ask you, what solution did you find? For example, when you do this, and this, what answer do you get? And I've seen that used mainly even in non-relational databases kind of scenario. They'll just give you data, ask you to solve something for it, and then tell them what answer you got. In that case, they won't even need to check your code, but from your response, they know what you covered and what you didn't cover. Over to you, Bethany.
I think from your answer is that employers are also considerate. They understand the field and they will test you. So ensure you also understand the field, regardless whether you have show or not, right?
Yes. Make sure you understand the field, because it's beyond you just saying I can do this. They will also need, or even just showing a project, because when you show me a project, and like you said, sometimes we can't see the history of the work. You can't see who committed this code, right? They will just give you something that actually confirms that you can do the things you say you can do.
Okay, I think we can continue then. The other question is about a cover letter, so I think we'll cover it at the end. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So again, so the skills section, now this is separate from the skills we were indicating per every work history. Now this is at the end of the CV. And again, this is a section where someone was asking whether you can include it at the top, which is also fine. So in this one, you need to indicate what you code in, your main frameworks, your main languages, as well as your secondary ones that you've used in your career. This covers all your work history now. If from 5 years ago you used these and you're still comfortable saying that you can code in it, include it there. Then the trick here is that for every skill you add in step 1, it needs to be shown in your work history. So for example, if you tell me you're good at MongoDB, when I go to your experience section, I need to see somewhere where you've said you used MongoDB when you were at this job, something like that. Then include both hard and soft skills. Hard skills would be the coding skills and such. Now, soft skills now include things like communication, professionalism, showing initiative, such things. If you have a skill that you know you're very strong at, for example, in the startup world, you need to be very adept because startups change every now and then. You can include that as a skill that you have. Then again here, if you're using this CV to apply to a job, check what they're looking for. And then if you have those skills, mirror them. For example, I can say I am a good communicator. And those are the words I use. I am a good communicator. But then the words used in the job posting do not say anything about communication, but they are alluding to communication. So use the words that they're using to communicate what your skills are if the skills match. And I believe that's the end of the CV section. So the next part is resources. Now, there are a number of resources that are available to you. If we have recommended you for a job in the last 3 months, we'll probably have sent you these resources when asking for an updated CV. And I apologize, I know we ask for updated CVs a lot, but I hope you can see why we ask for them. So the first tool is a tool called Score by Resume by a company called Resume Worded. You'll get this presentation and you can use the link here. Now, this tool gives you instant feedback on your CV. You simply sign up, upload your CV, and say, score my CV. Now, what you see here on the right is a CV that I uploaded, and this was the first feedback I got. So in terms of communicating the impact I had at work, I was at 10% out of 100. So that definitely needed a lot of work. In terms of brevity, this is using words, long words that don't need to be used, paragraphs and such. I was at 14%. Again, needed a lot of improvement there. In terms of style, now style looks at the format of your CV. Are you using tables? Are you using tabs? Is your CV good for automated system CV checks? Then in terms of skills, had I portrayed the skills I have, at least that was good. It was at 100% for that section. But overall, my CV score was 25%. Now, when you upload your CV here, you will also get the recommendation part has been cut off, but you'll get recommendations in terms of how do you improve your impact, how do you improve your brevity, how can you change your style, how do you show your skills better. Now, in the next section is, now after I reviewed my CV, then this is what happened. I moved from 25% to 54% with the first review. And again, my impact increased in that I could now show what impact I had on this job. Again, brevity, I reduced the use of unnecessary word, style became average, and then the skills part dropped, probably because of now using more words to show impact, but at least my overall score went up. So I would advise you guys to go. Again, this platform is not affiliated to us in any way, to ALC or Underline in any way. We don't have any partnership, but it's a platform that is very useful in making your CV better. So I would advise you guys to go run your CV there if you haven't already. They also have another tool called Target Your Resume. This is a tool that compares a JD that you're applying for to the CV that you're using to apply. What you can see on the right is an application. So in that screen, in the little computer screen, you can see a 28. And then on the right side, you can see the job description. Here, you simply go to the platform, paste the JD in a text box, and then upload your CV, and it will check for you how well your CV matches to that CV. Now, I'll be sincere with you. Most companies are switching to automated CV checks if they haven't already. And basically what they'll do is say, if your CV does not hit, say 80%, automatically reject. So you actually don't get to a human being if you don't hit a certain percentage. And this is where this tool becomes important. It also lets you know what are these people looking for by automatically telling you what are the keywords in this job. And that is what you can see highlighted in green. And those are the keywords that now you'd match in your description. For example, here, it talks about testing. So doing UAT testing, doing the application testing suite. So if you're someone who has used TDD or whichever kind of testing in your development world, you need to include the keywords that are in testing. And please don't add keywords just because you're in a JD. Add them because you actually have the skills for that. Yes. And the next section is actually an Andela tool. And this is the engineering framework. Some of you might know it. And this acts just as a guide for you. For example, if you're an engineer today and want to know what is expected of you at your level, this is a tool you can use to check both in terms of coding skills, in terms of professional skills, what is expected of you. If you can see on the right, you can just follow that link later. Wow, we only have 7 minutes. You can just follow that link later, but basically you get to choose your current level. Are you a software engineer? Are you a senior engineer? Then the levels, you can play around with the levels because they might not make sense to you when you're outside of Andela, but basically Eng 1 would be someone who is in 0 to 1 year of experience, Eng 2, like that, it goes increasing by the Eng level. Then are you a front-end engineer? And then are you an individual contributor? Under it will have a number of tabs. So in competencies, it just tells you general things that you're expected to know at that level as an engineer at that level. Then technical focus now is more on, if you're a front-end engineer, if these are the skills you're using, these are the frameworks you need to know, these are the things you need to know in those frameworks, things like those. And then it also tells you in terms of professional skills, do you need skills like stakeholder management? Do you need to know how to ask questions when you need to clarify something? Such things. And these will let you know, you can do a self-evaluation. If I'm at this level, do I actually meet these criteria here? And again, this is an Andela tool, but I can assure you, if you make sure you meet these things listed here and you're actually perfect at them, you will pass your interview anywhere. Then the last tool is just a link to different resume templates. And this covers different people, again, because people are in different areas in their career. So it will cover people who are experienced hires. If you have 2-3+ years of experience, your resume will look a bit different from a recent graduate. Then if you're a freelancer, and in which case what you're indicating are projects, then there's a CV for you. If you're still a student, again, there's a CV template for you. This is just a general link. You will go, when you go to that section, you will see what it looks like. Again, some of these tools are free, some are premium. So for the free ones, you can easily download and then edit it to suit like your skills. For the premium ones, you will be able to view the format, view how it's done, but you'll not be able to download. Sincerely, the tools on this platform, the free tools are good enough to get you going. You don't have to pay for the premium tools at this level. Yeah, and that's it from me. I hope those slides were useful. So before we go to questions, what's next? Because again, we told you this is a series, so we'll be having a lot more of these, but then we have to have like to-dos after. So what I would say first, check your current resume against the Check My Resume tool. Please take a screenshot of what your initial score is, like I had done there where I showed 25. Then update your CV using the feedback given. Then take a screenshot of your new score just to record the improvement. It actually feels good to see your CV going up. And then we'd also like to know the improvement, so you can share that with us when you're giving us feedback about this session. So the screenshot of before and after, and then some feedback on what more would you have loved to see. I believe we'll be sharing that form after this. And it will actually also be included as part of the slides in the comment section. Yeah, so Q&A.
I think the session has been amazing. I have a lot of work to do on my CV. Wow. So maybe I can go back to so I've shared the tools on the different links. As I said, we'll be sharing the presentation with you later on. So don't worry. And then the email we used to reach out to you is the same one that we'll use for the resume. So there's one question here. What role does the cover letter play? And is it more important? What is more important, the CV or the cover letter?
The cover letter, I think it depends on the employer. It depends on the employer. If you have a job that says include a cover letter, then include it. So what role does a cover letter play? It tells me directly, especially depending on the role you're applying for. So if it's leadership and such, you might actually need that cover letter to introduce yourself and talk about what skills do you have that are relevant to these skills? What impact are you looking to bring to the company? And again, in the cover letter, remember to say the advantage you're bringing to the company. That will give them an interest to look at your CV. Yes, it plays a great role in telling me, who are you? It almost acts as an introduction to your resume, but then it does not replace the resume. If you're applying, I think you should include both the cover letter and your resume.
Okay, I don't think we have any other question. Oh yeah, there's one on YouTube. Should one put a picture of yourself on your CV?
No, like I said, for tech-related jobs, your picture is not necessary. I think a picture should only be there when it's required for the profession you're applying for. Otherwise, just leave it out.
Okay, then Solomon is asking, after my CV paves the way, should I disclose my current or past salary when asked by the recruiter during the negotiation time?
Well, negotiations are a different conversation altogether, because that would mean that you have passed the interviews. And sometimes the recruiter will actually ask you, what's your current compensation? What's your expectation? Again, I would say, know your worth. Know how much your skills are worth. Know how much your time is worth. Know how much the industry is paying. And I'll be very sincere with you. The cost of a software developer entry level in Kenya is not the same as that of one in Nigeria. So again, know how much your employer is, like how much the range is for your role, depending on where you are. The other method here is to especially now that we are applying for remote jobs. So you might be applying for a job, you're based in Nigeria, but the role is in, say, New York. So you need to ask them, what's the budget for the role? Again, when it comes to money, I would rather get an offer first. Don't be the first one to give the money. Let them tell you what their budget is. Then you can tell them what your expectation is. Either the same or higher if they offer you little. Yeah. But just do think about your worth as well.
Okay. I think it's now 6 p.m. It's now the top of the hour. So as we conclude, maybe you can just tell us something about what the Andela Job Network is all about, and then give a word of advice to everyone who's attending the session today.
Wow, I wasn't ready for the advice section, but yeah. So the job network, as you know, Andela through ALC has been partnering with a number of people. And I think our biggest partner to date has actually been Google, because we started with them in 2017. And what has happened now is that we have trained over 77,000 people through our programs. And then we sat back and asked ourselves, okay, we have trained people. Is training enough? Now we need to link them to jobs. So we actually started linking people to jobs in 2019. Yes, in 2019. And at this point, we're just recommending people into Andela directly until Andela now stopped recruiting junior engineers. And then we had to change how we were doing things. So the job network, to get back to that, it's a platform that allows you as a candidate to go in, create your profile, say what you're interested in. And it's in the early stages because we just launched these. I think we launched it end of last year. That's when we created the job network. So we're still learning from it. When you create your profile, we are working on the other side, which is bringing employers onto the platform. And then the employers will have a chance to look at your profile and reach out to you if you fit the job that they have. The other thing they'll be able to do is come on the platform and add a job so that you can view the jobs that are open and apply directly for that job. So currently, the employer side is a bit manual. What people are doing is that they're reaching out to us directly and saying, hey, I am looking for, say, a UI UX developer. Can you recommend people? So then we go back to anyone who has ever shared their LinkedIn profile with us or their CV with us and said they're looking for a job, and then check through the person who qualifies for that. And then we can link them up if the person is still available for a job, which is why you see sometimes you'll just receive an email saying, hey, employer X liked your profile and would like to chat with you. Please connect with them. There are a number of people who have received such a kind of an email. Then we have roles which, for those we have LinkedIn profile or CVs and are looking for a job, we don't have a good fit. So those ones we send you a form. Say, hey, there's this role. If you're interested, apply. And then we will go through all the applications and then shortlist people who fit that skill. Forward the details to the employer, and then the employer will get in touch or will do the introduction directly. Again, still in the early stages, learning a lot in terms of the platform and the process, but working very hard to make it a bit more seamless, both for you candidates and for the employers, as well as for us, because reviewing 5,000 CVs is not a joke. Yeah. So, word of advice. Man, I don't know what to say here, because maybe what I can say is my experience with reviewing CVs over the last few months has been that people don't ask questions about these roles. For example, I will tell you, we sent a form out without a JD by mistake, and no one asked me for a JD. They just applied, and I ended up asking, so what are they applying to if they don't have a JD? So feel free to ask these questions. Hey, what are the requirements? What are the needs for these? And then if you don't know something, it's fine. Again, just apply. Say, this is why I think I'm a good fit for this, even though I lack X or Y, right? It's still okay to apply for those. Be patient because it takes a long time. There's a role we advertised in January. We just finished shortlisting for it. Those are 3 months. It takes a long time. And you might actually get recommended for 5 roles before you get an interview in one. So be patient with that. Yeah. I hope that's good enough advice.
I think it's exceeded my. You were to give one piece of advice. I think you've given 3 or 4.
I see.
So it's perfect. I think. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think we can now call it a day. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Anne, for leading the session. We'll be having this session again. This is the first in the series, so be sure to watch out on YouTube, on our Twitter and Facebook pages. So be sure to watch out. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining, and have yourselves a good Easter holiday and a good evening. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. I enjoyed having this session. Looking forward to the next one.